The Night of the Red Shield. Finn MacCool and a band of his men once went to Jura, the Isle of Deer, to hunt the red deer. They hunted all day before making their camp on the slopes of Ben Nanor. Mates stood over campfires beneath a phoenix sky. The hunters sat around the fires with their hounds at their sides, the fading sunlight spinning the grass to gold. All is well with Fianna, said Caoilte. We are the mightiest company of men in the world. There isn't a person alive who could harm Finn here and now, with us surrounding him. An awkward silence followed this. Then something curious happened. The Fianna saw a ship of blazing fire sailing into Jura from the west. It docked in the bay, and from its prow leapt a warrior in black armour. He ran up the hill, taking such powerful strides that within a few moments he was standing before them. Before anyone could say anything, he smacked Finn in the mouth, so hard that 3 of Finn's teeth fell out. The warrior picked up the teeth, turned and ran down the hill. He leapt into his blazing boat and steered away. Everyone glared at Caoilte. Maybe I was wrong, said Caoilte, but no matter. I will follow that scoundrel, slaughter him and bring back Finn's teeth. And I will go with him, said bald-headed Conan, who didn't like Caoilte much, but was in the mood for an adventure and a fight. The 2 aging warriors armed themselves, said their goodbyes, and made their way downhill and through the bogs to the coast. On their way they heard a noise behind them. They turned to see Oscar, Finn's golden-haired grandson, running to catch up. Neither man wanted Oscar to join them. He was so young and achingly handsome that he made them feel even older and surlier than they were. Go back and see to your grandfather, said Caoilte. I'd rather go adventuring, said Oscar. We'd rather you stay here, said Conan. Try and make me, said Oscar. Caoilte was swift and strong despite his years. He seized Oscar, carried him to the top of the mountain, and tied him to it. They set off again and soon heard another noise behind them. Turning, they saw Oscar with the crag still tied to his back. He had pulled it loose from the mountain. I'm coming with you, he said, and this time they agreed. After untying Oscar, the warriors carried on their way. They reached the coast and boarded their ship. The sails were hoisted, they spoke a prayer for good wind, and soon they were sailing west, following a trail of smoke that rose from the Black Warrior's ship. For 3 days and nights they followed the trail. On the 4th morning, Caoilte climbed the mast to see what could be seen, but fell down before reaching the top. Old fool, laughed Conan. This is how it's done. He heaved himself up, his knotted muscles bulging beneath his leathery skin, and fell down before he was halfway up. I'll take a look, said Oscar. He shinnied up the mast and called out, I see an island ahead. Upon the beach is a wall of flame, and it goes all the way around the island. No wall of flame will stop us, says Conan, as Oscar climbed down the mast, to which Caoilte agreed. They brought the ship in, leapt onto the beach, and approached the wall of flame. Right, said Conan, watch this. Conan charged at the flame wall, roaring a battle cry. He leapt into the air and fell short, landing among the flames. Howling, he ran from the flame wall and rolled in the sand to put out the flames on his back. I'll show you how it's done, said Caoilte. The fast-footed warrior ran and leapt at the flame wall. He met the same fate. I'll have a go, said Oscar. Oscar was younger and sprier than Conan and Caoilte, and he had learned the salmon leap from Dermot. He sailed over the flame wall and landing with a flourish on the far side. Stay there and wait for me, but don't get too comfortable, he called out. It won't take me long to find my grandfather's teeth. Beyond the ring of fire was a country of forests and mountains, where the grass was blue, the sky was green, and the rocks were clear as glass. Oscar walked here and there until he came to the foot of a mountain. He heard a great roaring and rumbling sound, as if the mountain were clearing its throat. The sound was coming from somewhere up the mountain. Oscar was curious as to its source, so he began climbing. Beneath the mountain's snowy peak, he saw a maiden sitting on the rocks. An ogre lay sleeping with his head in her lap. The maiden had dusky hair and sea-green eyes. She was more beautiful than foxfur and the first geese of autumn. If you didn't have that big lad upon you, I would lay you down upon the rocks and kiss you, said Oscar. If I didn't have this big lad upon me, I would lay you down and do more than kiss you, said the girl. What can I do to wake him? Asked Oscar. Try cutting off his pinky finger. Oscar drew his knife and cut off the ogre's pinky. The ogre merely mumbled some curses and went back to snoring. I don't know what else to say, said the maiden. No one has ever managed to wake him. Some say he won't awaken, until the warrior of the red shield strikes a mountain top against his chest. Oscar had never been called warrior of the red shield, but blood had soaked his shield in many a battle. He climbed up to the very tip of the mountain, pulled it loose, brought it back down, and plunged it into the ogre's heart. The ogre's eyes opened. He reached for Oscar, but as he did so, blood poured from his mouth. The ogre rolled from the maiden's lap onto the rocks. He was dead. "There," said Oscar. "Now let's see what this lad has about him." He looked through the ogre's pouches and found 3 teeth. "Finn's teeth," said Oscar. He pocketed the teeth and kissed the maiden. Some time later he announced it was time for him to return to his ship. "I'll come with you," said the maiden. "I'd like that," said Oscar. They climbed down the hill and walked until they reached the flame wall. Oscar Salmon leaped over it with the maiden in his arms. Kilcha and Oscar were sitting on the beach, gaming with a board they had drawn upon the sand. "Entertain my bride," said Oscar to Kilcha and Conan. "This is a fine place, and I imagine there's more fighting and adventuring to be done here." The maiden sat down to game with Kilcha and Conan. Oscar leapt over the flame wall and was gone. This time Oscar followed a road that led west through the forest and glens to a seaside village. 3 men were camped at the roadside just outside the village, sharpening their swords. "What is this place, and who are you?" asked Oscar. "We are fighting men," said the first of them. "Beyond the village, between the land and sea, is a battlefield. Every day we do battle there with 100 servants of the Son of Darkness, Son of Dimness. Every day we defeat them, but in the morning they rise up again as strong as they ever were." "Let's get some food and drink," said Oscar, "and share stories tonight. In the morning I will join you on the battlefield." "We are under spells," said the second man, "that none may join us in battle." "Then stay in bed tomorrow," said Oscar, "and I will face them alone." Oscar and the fighting men entered the village together. They took a table in the inn and caroused through the night, telling stories and singing songs that have all gone from the world now. At last the 3 drunken warriors returned to their camp. Oscar went out into the red dawn. He came to the beach. It was easy to spot. It was strewn with bodies, the sky thick with kites and crows. Oscar sat on a rock and waited until the sun rose out of the mouth of the morning. In that moment, fingers twitched, mouths groaned, sword arms flexed, and 100 bloodied corpses rose from death. Those with eyes fixed them on Oscar, who drew his sword and shouted his battle cry. The ghouls fought well. They were quick and cunning. Oscar battled them all day, iron ringing on iron, their savage shrieks never ceasing. Oscar nearly became a corpse himself many times, but his skills won out. Come sunset, he stood alone upon the blood-drenched sand. That was when the Son of Darkness, Son of Dimness, strode through the flame wall. This wasn't the warrior who had knocked out Finn's teeth, but he looked almost as fearsome. Wearily Oscar drew his sword again. Laughing and dancing, spinning and leaping, the Son of Darkness came at Oscar. Black as a kelpie's dreams were his armour, his hair and his eyes. Oscar battled him for hours, and it was the hardest fight Oscar ever fought. At last Oscar triumphed and sliced off his enemy's head. Oscar took his enemy's spear and fell to the sand. His death-dealing was finished, and so was he. He couldn't even crawl back to his friends. Oscar fell asleep amid those he had slaughtered. He awoke at dawn, just as something else came through the flame wall. An old serpentine woman slithered up the sand. She had no legs. Instead she had a fat tail like a slug or a grey snake. She wore a dress of bones and rotting skins. A tooth as long as a walking stick grew from her right palm. The hag went to the first corpse, bent over it and put a finger in its mouth. The moment she did so, it came to life. She went to the next corpse, and the next, doing the same. Corpses rose up again. Oscar played dead until she came to him. When she put her finger in his mouth, he licked it just to startle her, before biting it off. The hag screamed. She slapped him so hard that he flew over 7 hills before crashing down on a bare hillside. She raced over the hills and found him there. "Wretched worm," she said, "I will make a gown of your entrails." She lunged at him with her long tooth. Oscar leapt back, narrowly avoiding its point. He aimed at her the spear he had stolen from the Son of Darkness, Son of Dimness. "That is my son's weapon," she hissed, "and I promised to look after it," said Oscar. He threw it so hard that it went into her heart, out of her back, and nailed her to a tree. Oscar collapsed again. Later that day, the 3 fighting men came looking for Oscar and found him. "Thank you for coming," said Oscar, "but I think this is my end." "Not so," said the first of the men. "It is known that the hag, the mother of the son of darkness, carries a healing balm which cures any wounds given by her or her son." He went to the hag's body, searched through the pockets of the skins which she wore, and found the jar of balm, which he rubbed on Oscar's wounds. The four of them went back to the inn. They shared songs and stories again, and the following day they walked up to a high hilltop to play shinty and clear their heads. As they sported in the sunshine, they looked out to sea and saw a ship of blazing flames coming towards the island. Oscar knew that ship. He dropped his shinty stick and drew his sword. The blazing ship docked, and the warrior who had taken Finn's teeth leapt through the flame wall. "He is the one who took my grandfather's teeth," said Oscar. "That is the great son of the sons of the universe," said one of the fighting men. The three of them dropped their sticks and fled. The great sun bounded through the flame wall and up through the hills towards Oscar. Flames billowed about him, and he sucked the light from the sky with his breath. The great son of the sons of the universe landed before Oscar. He drew his blazing sword from its scabbard. "You will be looking for your doting grandfather's teeth, Oscar," said the great son of the sons of the universe. "I already have them," says Oscar. "Ha! Foolish Fianna," laughed the great son. "Those are horse's teeth you took from the ogre. I have Finn's teeth, and you must fight me to get them back." If Oscar was ever afraid to fight anyone, it was the great son of the sons of the universe. Despite his fear, he didn't hesitate. He raised his sword and charged at his enemy. They fought from hillside to shore to mountain top, the great sun drawing daylight and starlight and every nightmare ever dreamed into his blade. The world ended and began again as they fought, and Oscar could see no hope of winning. "Come, Oscar," cried the great son of the sons of the universe. "I expected a better fight than this. The Fianna are said to fight like bears. You fight like a sickly sparrow." Oscar growled and changed tactics. Instead of striking one, he struck twice. He rained volley after volley of blows upon his enemy. Every last stroke he made at the ground beneath him. Oscar was ready. He moved back, opening his guard. The great sun roared and ran at him. He fell into the hole Oscar had dug. With a mighty swing, Oscar severed the head of the great son of the sons of the universe. The great sun fell down dead, his fires extinguished, and Oscar took from his pouch Finn's teeth. Oscar was tired of the island and ready to go home. He returned to the flame wall, leapt over it, and found that Conan, Culce, and the maiden had left. Their boat was nowhere to be seen. "I have been betrayed," said Oscar. He returned to the village and sought out his three friends. They apologised for not staying by his side and offered to provide him with a boat, along with 3 pigeons to guide him home. Oscar accepted, and he set sail for Scotland. Days later, Oscar arrived at Finn's Hall in Glen Lyon. He entered the hall. Dozens of warriors sat feasting at the tables. Finn was sitting in his high seat. Oscar's eyes roved the hall and found Culce and Conan. The maiden from the mountain top sat at Conan's side. "Oscar," called Conan as the hall fell quiet, "you have a nerve showing your face here after you ran from the battle in which we took back Finn's teeth." There was a dark muttering and much glaring at Oscar. Oscar approached Finn. "Did Culce and Conan return your teeth to you?" he asked. "Yes," said Finn, "but they don't fit well. I have taken to hammering them in each evening, which pains me greatly." "Take them out," said Oscar. Finn took out the teeth, which were the horse's teeth which Oscar had taken from the ogre's pouch. Oscar took the real teeth from his own pouch, dropped them in a cup of ale, and offered it to Finn. Finn drank the ale, and the 3 teeth put themselves back into place. Oscar turned to the company and told his story. When he was done, it was agreed that the Fianna would feast in Oscar's name for 3 weeks, while Culce and Conan washed dishes in the kitchen. The end. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and press the wee bell notification. And a huge big thank you to all my subscribers and patrons. See you next week. Bye bye.